right, let me just turn off the Lambo. Let's go. All right, traders, so I'm just getting into the office here and I like Euro Canadian for a potential sell this morning. And I'm gonna talk briefly before I jump over to the charts and show you guys the trade. I'm gonna talk about why I'm taking this trade, and a comment that I usually get on some of my videos is, Nick, why are you selling the lows or buying the highs? Isn't the concept supposed to be buy low, sell high? Well, in this concept, I'm a momentum trader. So in my shorter term swings, I'm looking for momentum to continue, meaning if something is going up, I wanna be buying it and riding that momentum as much as I possibly can with a managed risk position. So with this sell on Euro Canadian, I'm going to be shorting near the lows at a breakout position, meaning that, okay, sellers have taken over this market and it could go lower. So I want to actually let that trade run if it wants to keep going. And if it doesn't, I'm going to break the trade with a stop loss and just get out of there and move on to find something else to trade. So that's kind of the premise or why I do that. So let's go ahead and take a look at the trade and we'll take a look at it on the charts. All right, guys, so I just found my first trade setup for the week, and what I'm going to do in this video, as I usually do in my live trading videos, is I'm going to start recording my trade before it even begins all the way until the end. I don't want to make this glamorous or look too good to be true. The reality of trading is not all trades are going to be profitable, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to record my analysis, my trade, and watch it start to finish, whether it's a winner or loser, here for you guys on YouTube. If you enjoy this sort of content, please do me a favor, give this video a thumbs up down below so that YouTube will start recommending this sort of content to you. If it is beneficial to you, don't miss out. So let's go ahead and talk about this GBP Canadian trade that I'm looking to get in. I'm going to give you guys my analysis before I take the trade. I'll share it with members inside of the A1 trading community, and then we will go from there. So I actually like the idea here of being on the short side on GBP Canadian. What you'll notice here is that we actually saw some pretty good rejection previously, and kind of the key starting point for why I'm interested in looking at the shorts is notice how we saw this really nice run up here on GBP Canadian, but we actually saw a topping point here, and since then we've seen kind of a lower high form here, and that combined with this, where we've got this lower high syndrome, right, where we've got these lower lows and lower highs being formed, that shows me that, okay, it looks actually pretty bearish here, and things look like they're slowing down. Another thing here is you'll notice we had that really nice run up here on the long side, and now we're kind of going sideways and even fading a little bit. So with this move to the low side, I'm looking to try and anticipate a next swing lower and try and sell on the break. So this is not a pullback entry, this is actually a breakout entry. I'm looking to catch some of the break, and hopefully that momentum can continue in our direction. So with that said, let me see if I can take a look at the daily time frame as well. So the daily time frame looks pretty interesting to me because we're actually right at that 200 period. This is the 200-day moving average. We're at it right now, and so watching for that weakness coming into that 200-day to me looks like we could actually be due to break this. And a lot of times if we break above or below that 200-day, that is a good signal to me that we could see some continuation. Now let's talk about one more indicator here that I sometimes share but very often look at when I'm taking some of my trades. If we pull up this is on the a1trading.com website. You can go find this if you go to, I'll show you where you go to. If you go to trade ideas and then you go down to Forex heat map, down here I've got some of the tools that I've gotten from other websites and just kind of shared onto my own completely. They've got like widgets available that you can just put on your own website. But down here is really where I'm going to be interested. Take a look at this information right here. GBP CAD on the website there basically shows that retail positions right now are 74% long and 25% short. That information tells me that the average retail trader is trying to buy this market quite substantially, right? So what that tells me is that gives me a slight interest more so on being on the short side. If all the retail traders are long on something, I don't want to be long as well. I'd rather be short. And so that's where, again, going back to my lower time frames here, looking at that 1 hour chart, showing some strength to the downside. We've got this downwards potential here, and I want to see if retail traders are going to get beat here. Again, I like to bet against the retail trader, not to be rude or mean or show disrespect to the retail traders, but most of them don't make money, so I want to be against them. So let's also talk about this guy right here. This is a big interesting point as well for my short bias. This upward trend line has been in play for some time, and I'm looking for some sort of confirmation, some sort of strength before getting involved on the short side. I don't just want to be shorting into an uptrend. I'd rather see some sort of sign, and we got it here with the break underneath this trend line. So we had this kind of supportive structure by the bulls, which recently just broke out, and now I'm interested in taking a short trade. I think that there's better risk to reward here for the potential downside continuation. So with that said, I will be right back. I'm going to take the trade and share it with members, do a little bit of a write up, and I'll be back here just to show you guys that the trade is live. All right, guys, so we got some good news here as price moved in our favor on this GBP Canadian trade. Prices moved down to a point where I was happy to move my stop to break even. Now, if you're familiar with the way I trade here on the channel, a lot of times what I end up doing is I look for price to make its move in my favor to about 1 times my initial risk. So again, here's my initial risk. If you remember from our setup, I put my stop here above structure and above kind of, if I was wrong, I was going to get stopped out if price came up here. Well, that same distance, it's actually fortunately moved in my favor to the point where I was able to actually take that initial risk and move it up to break even, which in my opinion is one of the best feelings ever as a trader who trails the stops, because it allows me to feel, okay, well, this trade is basically risk-free from here, meaning I'm not going to lose any money on this trade unless something catastrophic happens. But for the most part, it basically just means that the worst thing that can happen is if price rises back and hits me here, I'll make slightly more than break even, which to me, again, is a very relaxing thought. A lot of times, my favorite thing to do as a trader is as soon as price moves in my favor, go ahead and move that stop up to break even, because it gives me kind of this, sensation of, okay, well, this trade is locked in. Let's see what it can give me, not this sensation of, okay, let me just take the profit as soon as I can. So a lot of times people struggle with this idea of as soon as a trade moves in their direction, they just want to close out the trade so that they avoid losing any money, or they just want to take the profit. But the cool thing here is if you've watched the channel for a while, if you've been sticking around and watching my journey here as I share some of my trades, you'll know that some of the biggest winners come from those trades where we don't take profits really quickly. In fact, we actually just let the trade run, and hopefully we get something like that on pound Canadian here. We never know exactly which trade is going to be the big winner, and I don't try and predict every single thing the market's going to do. So with that said, what I do know is that I've gone ahead and moved my risk off of the table, locked in this trade, and we're going to see how this one wants to run. So I'll keep you guys updated. We are officially at break even. Hopefully we can get a slip further. We did see some nice breakout to the downside there on that daily bar. We saw continuation as we were hoping for, and so far so good. So you can actually see if price were to move down here to our 2R level, at that point I would go ahead and move this stop up to 1R locked in, and so on and so forth, depending on how the price action plays out. So stay tuned with me, guys. We'll be back soon with an update here on GBP CAD. All right, so things are working out really nicely here so far on GBP CAD. You can actually see there's our initial entry point. If you remember, we took the short in favor of the downwards momentum. We put our stop up here. Since then, we've moved our stop into break even, slight profit. And now you can actually see this beautiful red candle. One of the coolest things as when you're selling a market is when you get one of these big fat red candles that kind of confirms your trade, and it's always a good feeling. So we'll see if that good feeling will last though, because we're seeing a lot of momentum to the downside. Hopefully that can persist throughout the rest of the day. It is currently about 11 a.m. in the US right now while I'm looking at this. So I'm hoping that for the rest of the US session, we can see some continued bearishness on this GBP CAD move. Seeing a lot of moves across the board on the pound pairs to the downside, which is definitely in favor of my position. Very simple concept I wanted to talk to you guys about today is that generally speaking, with this strategy, when things are going right, I am staying in the trade and that's all good. When things are going wrong in my trade, if it's going against me, very quick to cut off those losses. And that's kind of the core principle of this trading strategy. So when you see me in a trade for a longer period of time, what that usually means is the trade is going well. And if it's quick, it's usually not going well. Another way to check that is when you watch the video. Here's a little cheat sheet. If you watch one of my live trading videos and you see the video is a longer one, usually it's a winning trade. If a trade trade is a shorter video, it's usually a losing trade. And that's good in my view, because I want to be getting out of those losing trades quickly. Now, let me just recap with you guys my next move or my next action here on this trade. If it ends up going in my favor, I'm looking at the 4-hour chart currently. If price can come down just a bit more here to my 2R level, I might just reevaluate things and say, okay, well, we've got this supportive level. I'll probably go ahead and move up my stop just to lock in some gains on this trade. So currently I have not really locked in any gains. I've taken the risk off, as we mentioned, but I have not locked in any gains as of yet. So if price can come down a bit further, then I will confirm that this is going to be a winning trade by moving my stop down below to this 1R level, which will lock in again, not only a free trade, but a trade that will result in profit. Now you might ask, well, Nick, why don't you just take profit when things hit 2R? Because it's probably gonna bounce back, right? And that very well may be the case, but what if it keeps going? What if it goes 3R and this trade, this momentum really works out? And what if it hits 4R, right? And I took profit at 2R. Right? I don't want to do this game of hindsight. I want to let the market do as much as it wants to do, because we've all seen those crazy trends that can continue and continue. So I want to be a part of those. I want to join those and ride them as much as possible. So with that said, I will not be taking profits preemptively. I will be letting this trade run as much as it wants to go. That is my strategy. I don't try and make trading seem, easier than it is, because here on YouTube, there's a lot of people who have all those quote unquote secret strategies and stuff. But the reality for me is my strategies are very simple. I don't get too complicated with them. My entry points and exit points are, I use technical analysis, I use fundamental analysis, I do my homework. But part of that is keeping it really simple overall. By the way, if you are not already a member, hey, come join us inside of the A1 trading community if you want to trade alongside myself and the rest of our gang there. We've got a really thriving and great community full of some really awesome people. So come trade with us. Check out the link in the description, a1trading.com/VIP. And if you use promo code YTVIP, you'll get $5 off of your membership. So hey, come join us and we'll see you back in the update here on this trade. GBP CAD just made its move to the downside there, and at this point I have officially locked in just shy of 1R on my initial trade. So again, recapping, our stop was here, moved it up to break even, and now fortunately have moved it up to our 1R position. So at this point, you can see that price is really moving in our favor. The momentum did continue as I had hoped for. And at this point, now it's a matter of not how much money do I risk or how much money can I lose, but at this point, we are in the very nice position of saying, how much money does the market want to make me? So that's always a great feeling to be in as a trader. Let me just really quick see how many pips this is. This is just roughly 155 pips here on the trade locked in. So that's a nice gainer there. Been in this trade for a few days, so happy to see this one continue. It's kind of nice because a lot of times what ends up happening with these trades is I hold on to those winners for days and days and days, and the losers lose, they stop out pretty quick. Now, what I'd love to see here is price continue to flush lower, of course, but if price does come up, what you'll notice is I do have some resistance here in this area where we previously broke through on the support side. So if price does happen to come up there, I did put my stop just shy of that area. I kind of want to see this thing continue, otherwise I want to be out of it. But if it does come back, I gave my stop just enough room there, I think, to kind of decide if it wants to go lower. So we'll see how that one plays out. But again, stop locked in here, and from here it's just a matter of how much money does the market want to give me, or is it going to reverse and just stop me out for a profit there. So we'll see how this one plays out, and I'll be back soon with an update on GBP Canadian. Here's a quick look at our GBP Canadian trade on the daily chart. Things looking really nice here. You can actually see this beautiful big red candle continuing in our favor at this time. But I just wanted to reiterate here as we get a little bit further in the video, talking about some of the big picture ideas here with this this trade and why I took it, so that, you know, in the future we could potentially look for setups that may mirror something like this. So I like the idea here. Again, going back to my initial thesis, we had this uptrend and we had this start to a counter trend. Now, when you have something like this, a lot of times what you're going to see is the dominant trend is just going to continue. But what I was looking for was that failure of this uptrend to show up. So basically the idea being here that, okay, this trend is currently the dominant trend, but if that changes, then I want to get short. And how do we look for that? Well, for me, that means looking for broken structure and a combination of these lower highs on the technicals, right? So we see price forming a lower swing high. That's telling us that, okay, sellers are strong enough to at least put in a lower high, and buyers were weak here to the point that sellers were able to break that level. Okay, now I want to look to get short. And that's where I ended up taking this short entry right around here. And so far we are still in the money there, just up over 2R at this point. So still trailed in our stop there. You can see it at the 1R level. So from here, we're going to let this one run. It would be really nice if we actually scroll out here a little bit. If we could get down to some longer term structure points, such as this area here, that would just be shy of the 3R level, which definitely would be nice. We'll see if that momentum wants to continue into the rest of this New York session and perhaps even beyond. So stay tuned. I'll be back with an update shortly. All right, guys, and there we are out of the trade here on GBP Canadian for a nice profit. You can actually see price coming up there on the 4-hour chart. Lots of bullish momentum coming back the other direction. So I just got stopped out of my trade at that 1R profit mark. If you remember, we initially put our stop here. We trailed it up to break even, and then we trailed it up to 1R. Now with price reversing, I'm just stopped out of the trade happily with a profit. I'm not going to complain about that because we made some good money on this trade, fortunately. So actually, let's talk about this. First of all, we're going to take a look how many pips were we able to catch on this trade. So here's our entry, drag it down to the 1R, roughly 160 pips locked in on this one move. So not bad at all. Pretty happy with how this one played out. So let's also recap. We're here on the 4-hour chart. Let's look at our initial thesis or idea for the trade, and let's go ahead and break down kind of in hindsight what happened with the trade. So initially we saw lots of higher lows being formed on this chart until we noticed this. This was what kind of piqued my interest. This lower high was a pretty interesting aspect because now we've got kind of bears and bulls in this market, right? Because we have sellers on the top, buyers on the bottom. And then when we got the break underneath that structure point, right? When this failed, this is where I wanted to get involved. In fact, we see price run to the downside there, and as it starts to crumble, I'm jumping into the trade. So I'm joining into the downward momentum. I ended up taking my short position here, which worked out beautifully because for the next few days, we saw some nice downward continuation on the trade. Now from there, things basically we had a plan, we stuck to the plan, and we basically moved in our stop to break even, like I said. And then at another point, once price moved down to this point, when we got that nice continuation, we wanted to lock in a little bit more profit. There we go. We move up to 1R. And when price moves back against us here, when we see that sign of bullishness, remember, in my strategy here, I'm trying to hold on to winners. If they are no longer looking like winners, I'm getting out of the trade. It is that simple. So I'm out of the trade there, and glad to be, because we are moving higher today and things look very bullish for whatever reason, whatever news event is going on. But again, locked in some beautiful profit there, 160 pips locked in on GBP Canadian. If you'd enjoyed this video, do me a favor, like the video down below. And also, if you're not already a member of our community, come join us in the A1 trading community. There's a link down below in the description for you to find out information. You can trade alongside with myself and the rest of our analysts here and get information on our trades, as well as access our chat room. So we'll see you in there if you decide to join, and thanks so much.